Let me see. All right. You want to give us an intro? Do you wanna announce us our first episode of Men's Network?
Yes, sir. What's up, you two? Welcome back to Men Network, the moderately educated news network, Men for short. Yeah, it's just two guys that are moderately educated black men chopping it up, bringing you the news, have a little conversation. Time to time we'll have some other people on here. Definitely get some different perspectives, viewpoints, and just start a conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Great intro. Let's see. What are we talking about today?
Today, Kamala came out with her economic plan, so I did want to touch bases on that. Um, See what you thought about it, see what you
Mhm.
think about Trump's, and just go from there.
Sure. If so, then let's go ahead and start with the what was outlined, and then we can give our opinions on it. Um, so for Kamala, I know that there was some talks about preventing of price gouging. Price gouging. At some point, she mentioned not housing, but price controls on housing. Um, let's see. I didn't hear anything about taxes. Oh, well, she said she wanted to cut taxes. Um, Not a big fan of that. But I don't know how I'm looking at this PBS article and it looks like she wanted to do some stuff with medical costs. I'm not familiar with that, but I could read up on that in just a
That
second.
is one thing that I will give the
And
Biden Harris administration credit for is making like special medication cheaper. I will give them credit for that for sure.
oh, transparency in pharmaceutical company pricing. Okay, I can get behind that. Permanent child tax credit. And I heard some shit where she was like, new homeowners get $25,000 or some shit.
Yeah,
Uh,
if they've paid rent for 2 years consecutively, without any misses, and
Would
then
expand the
also
earned.
if you're talking about doing Biden's $10,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers on top of
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
so basically $35,000 in free money, of which she did
Expand
not
the
disclose where
She
it's
wanted to
coming from.
expand the earned income tax credit to cut taxes for frontline workers for up to $1,500 and reduce taxes on healthcare plans offered by the marketplace created by the Affordable Care Act. All right, sounds good. That I guess that just about sums up Kamala's. If you want to go over, I guess some of Trump's economic policy and his positions on stuff, I gotta say I'm even less informed on that. So.
So with Trump, he wants to obviously keep the tax cuts that he installed in 2017 that kept more money in a lot of people's pockets. He wanted the corporate tax rate to be 21%, and Kamala's trying to get it back up to 28. Um, Also trying to think. He wants us to be energy independent because it makes no sense that we import so much oil from Russia and all these other places when we literally have it here. So he's saying if we get our energy prices down, then hypothetically the cost of goods would go down because the cost of transportation would go down, which also factors into the cost of goods, which is something that was big for us. Like back when I worked for Walmart, um the cost of goods, like the margins in any retail is razor thin. People do not know that. So transportation and things of that nature, if diesel's like 561, which I think it is in Texas, it's like something crazy, right?
Yeah.
If that's double of what it was 4 years ago, then obviously the cost of goods are going to go up. So he wants to bring that down. Um, and overall just make things more affordable by focusing on us being energy independent and then everything falling in place from there.
Gotcha, gotcha. Cool. Um, Now that that's summed up, I guess we can go into our opinions on each. Do you have a particular place you'd like to start, or
Well, let's start on Kamala. I find it interesting. So people were begging her for like policies because we're like 3 months out from the election.
Mhm.
And the first thing she said was like no tax on tips, which if you know, Trump's been saying for like a long time.
Yeah.
Um, so the copycat kind of aspect was interesting. And then Kamala coming out saying, "Oh, I want to bring back fracking," when you were like somebody that was vehemently against it,
Yeah.
is like, I don't know. She's a little wishy-washy. And that doesn't necessarily sit right with me because I don't like people who make false promises and then don't actually implement those. And then if you do implement the things that she's saying, right, like $25,000 for first-time home buyers, like that's where is that money coming from? It's
Yeah.
probably going to be a freaking multi-trillion dollar bill that gets passed again to cover those $10,000 tax credits and the $25,000 for first time home buyers. And then there are other things that are kind of concerning because people are saying she's thinking about adopting Biden's economic plan for like stocks and unrealized gains taxation and
Mhm.
increased uh capital gains taxation, which that is like, if you've seen the rates, they are insane. It would actually crash the stock market and basically destroy our economy. Like you can't tax unrealized gains 25%. That's
Yeah, no,
like nobody's gonna want to invest. That's
that's
freaking
just
nuts.
ridiculous. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, yeah, no, I've seen a lot of memes regarding like Kami Kamala. And for the most part, I think that yeah, well, we knew kind of getting into this, she is a bit of a far left candidate, especially when compared to a little milk toast Joe. So yeah, she is a bit much. I think in terms of her economic policy, it's not something necessarily I can totally get behind. I will say no candidate really has ever won preaching the fact that, hey, we're going to increase tax, take more money out of your pockets, but we're doing it because we need it. Like that's not a message any politician sends. Largely, I'm against both Trump and Kamala's tax cuts, just because we are dealing with an unprecedented amount of debt. I think our like interest payment just like got over $1 trillion. It was fucking ridiculous. The amount of money that we're borrowing just to pay just for interest payments, not even going towards any like actual programs is yeah, it's ridiculous. So that being said, I think that there needs to be tax increases. I'm for Kamala's 21 to 28%. That sounds fine by me. I don't think 7% cut into margins too bad. That gives the government a little extra money to play around with. Um, let's see, her 25K plus 10K for first time home buyers is not a solution to the housing crisis that we face now. I think that's fucking retarded. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I'll
You're
cut that
good, bro.
out. I'll
Hey,
cut
we're
that
just
out.
trying to get canceled as a
Yeah,
person.
nah, it's pretty fucking creepy though. No, I'll use this opportunity to work on my cussing and how I present myself. But let's see. Yeah, no, not a fan of tax cuts. But that being said, I think Democrats are more likely to raise taxes, which I'd be for. Uh, so that's kind of where I stand on a decent bit of that stuff. Uh, if you want, we could talk about. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you?
Yeah. So right now, right, it depends on who you're trying to raise taxes on, right? And the issue that I have, well, I'm going to go back to something you said. You said the government needs more money to play around with, or it'll give them more money to play around with if we go from 21 to 28%. Well, one thing that we've seen, right? People have. start getting laid off. Um, Unemployment starting to creep up a little bit, right? And just like in California, whenever they increase the minimum wage, just $20, that's cool. Or 50, is it 15 or 20?
What for restaurant workers, I think it's 25.
For sure. So they increased that in California, and then immediately, like half the jobs, all the delivery jobs, pizza delivery is dead. Like all that stuff literally gone. So businesses care about their margins. If you don't get the cost of goods down before you do these things, then they're literally just going to cut people because you're making them pay more, which is going to basically disincentivize them from um actually having more job openings, actually making things affordable. Like if
Mm.
let's take retail for example again, margins are razor thin, razor thin. If the cost of goods, cost of transportation, everything does not go down, and you increase the freaking the tax, corporate tax from 21 to 28%, things are going to get even more expensive. And things on average, everything as a whole is 20% more expensive over the past 4 years, which is crazy. And then back to your point about government spending and them having potentially more at 28%. One thing that I like about Trump's economic policy is the fact that he said he wants pure visibility into government spending. Like he wants to pass a bill or a law where essentially the American people will know exactly where every dollar is going. And I feel like that's imperative because it makes no sense that somebody like Nancy Pelosi can get in office, not even $1 million net worth, and now be worth over 100 mil. That's not
Yeah,
adding up.
sure.
And it's
I don't
multiple
think
people on both sides.
I
Mitch
don't
McConnell
know.
too.
I don't know if that's necessarily because of uh I don't know if you're implying that she allocated government funds to herself when you say that. Like, because seemingly that's not her, like, that's not government money. They wouldn't have any insight into Pelosi's financials with that bill, right?
Insider trading, amongst other things, but
And I would say that there probably should need to be a law prohibiting lawmakers from investing in, like, I think a solution to this, to insider trading and the inside scoop that you get because you sign bills that, like, for example, you enact a bill that cuts carbon emissions, and so you invested in a company that's going to go green, because you had this knowledge of the bill. That could be a big potential problem, and I'm sure it happens to some degree. I To solve that, I would either make a law or regulation where people that vote on legislation can't invest altogether, which I don't like. I don't think you should bar somebody from a market because they hold a public office. Probably better that you just limit their ability to invest, maybe to a certain index fund or
dollar
something like
amounts.
that.
Oh, to a specific thing. Okay. I mean,
That way they can still
you would
invest.
need to give them like a couple index funds, but
Well, yeah, absolutely,
I'm
absolutely.
not
But like you
opposed
invest
to
in the
that.
market as a whole as opposed to specific instances. So therefore, like the information that you have is kind of kaput. You
It
can't.
gets set up like a work 401k, basically.
Sure, I'm down. I'm down for that. But I don't. To your point about government transparency, I think there's a decent bit of transparency now. We know, like, of the budget, you know, what percentages went to certain institutions and what programs they funded. When it comes to complete transparency, I would probably disagree with you just because like 13% of our spending goes to the defense industry, and personally, I don't need to know that, or I don't think anybody needs to know that, hey, my tax dollar went to go fund, the research of the state of the art Hellfire missile. Like, no, I think to a degree, some of our spending is behind the scenes and discretionary. I mean, for the purposes of homeland security, for what's the word I'm looking for the protection of intellectual property and a whole bunch of other things. So I think we have a decent transparency. Uh, More wouldn't hurt, but complete and utter like would probably be unacceptable.
I
So
get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's like, let's say we are developing new Hellfire missiles, um, and they're significantly faster and do way more damage on impact and so on and so forth. How much does it actually cost to do the R&D for that and actually build that? What do the materials cost? Because if we're passing bills for freaking $50 billion or $100 billion for that, and it only costs freaking 100 million, where's the rest of the money going? That's a problem. That's a
yeah,
big problem. And the government spending has been out of control, unprecedented in terms of the amount of money these people are spending. It's crazy. And one thing that you mentioned last time we talked was the deficit that Trump had, right?
mhm,
Well, it's a deficit that was created from doing what? Lowering taxes. So people technically had more money in their pocket, and basically it's money that the government was not going to receive because people and businesses are basically keeping that money in their pockets. So it wasn't like he passed a bill that spent money. It just was a bill that
well, yeah.
had the government not make said money.
He spent a
But
fuck ton of money during doing stimmy checks for COVID. And then
I mean, he did what, 2.1 trillion, and then Biden came back and did another 1.9, which was not necessary. And then
yep,
after that, the
yep,
infrastructure bill, which was another like 1.8,
yep,
which what infrastructure changes have you seen anywhere? Anywhere.
yeah.
In New York, they actually started like freaking charging $20 tolls like downtown. So if
Yes,
you
I've
drive a
heard. But
personal vehicle, you
that's
cannot like.
I'd imagine that's mostly just to discourage traffic and use public infrastructure that exists. That's just probably a congestion thing and a deterrence, not necessarily that the city needs money for infrastructure, just like to deter people from continuing to flood the city streets. That's I'd imagine. Can't speak to
But
New
two
York as
trillion
yeah.
dollars on infrastructure. Where's the infrastructure at? That's
Yeah.
what has
Yeah.
changed.
You're gonna have to take that up with somebody. I'm not sure.
That's
I'm
what
not
I'm
sure.
saying.
But
They spend money on ambiguous things and pretend
well,
like it's
just
gonna be this amazing thing, and then it just ends up being the same thing, and then money gone.
I mean, yeah, just because I mean you may not realize whatever in your community or something doesn't mean that it's not affected somewhere. I mean, to say that, I mean, I'd be curious to know if they spent 2 trillion bucks. 2 trillion is a fuck ton of money. That gain had to have been realized somewhere, whether that's somebody's pocketbook or some. I mean,
Well,
I guess
exactly. Somebody's pocketbook. And
I
I have no doubt in my mind that's what it is. Because realistically, instead of passing that stupid bill that led to no change, no actual feasible, tangible change, which is the issue, right? Tangible change. I want tangibles. I don't know about you. If you're not offering tangible, something that I can see, taste, touch, or smell, I don't want to hear about it because it's bull crap otherwise. I can't get Social Security in the future because, oh, speaking of Social Security, that's something Trump wants to do as well. Get rid of taxes on Social Security. So
a lot of
basically,
tax
people that
cuts.
are older.
We don't need them.
Well, hear me out. The reason he said he wants to do it, it makes sense because the cost of living has gone up so much. Like older people, they're getting the same amount of Social Security, so with them essentially not having to pay tax on their social security, it keeps more money in their pocket so they can basically keep up with the cost of living instead of having to go back to work and being miserable when you're
So,
retired and you thought you were done. I
well,
mean, it
I'll
makes
see.
sense
I get you, and Social Security isn't already a ton of money to live off of,
at
but
all.
I'm very much like, hey, you had your entire life to save up for retirement, and the fact that you're that's your only source of income, and that little tax is gonna fuck you up, like you've obviously done something wrong. So I don't.
Education, though, we talked about this. People aren't educated with financial education to be armed the way you and me are to be financially successful.
Sure, sure, yeah, I'll give you that. But nah, I'm for. I'm a Democrat in that sense. I'm all for taxation. Tax the fuck out of me. Tax the fuck out of everybody. Tax the fuck out of we. Um, yeah, I I don't know. No tax on tips is stupid to me. No tax on Social Security. Fuck those old people. There are other ways, like I don't know, even if you tax Social Security, like I'm thinking once you file taxes at the end of the year, you might even get fucking money back because you're paying tax but have like negligible income. I don't fucking know. Same thing with like the note, people were like, oh, if you don't tax tips and it helps, struggling waitresses and shit like that. I think the thing is, most of these people are earning 40, 50K a year anyway, like barely above the
I
poverty
mean,
line.
most
They're
servers
gonna,
get paid like $2, $3, man. Like they
yeah, no,
get paid
their
very
minimum wage
low.
is garbage, but you gotta also they make good money off tips. I worked at Domino's for the past 3 months. I worked off tips and man, I was earning good money at Domino's. That's after they took the taxes on the tips out of my paycheck. That was good money.
But you know what the thing is about tips X? And this is why I have no issue with both of them saying no tax on tips.
Yeah.
A tip is something a person does out of their goodwill
No,
that is supposed
no,
to hold on,
no.
that is
Not in
supposed to
America, it's not.
circumvent. Well, that's because the culture behind it has started to change. And Starbucks wants to freaking make you tip 20% for just standing there and getting an $8 freaking latte.
Mhm.
That doesn't change the actual principle behind tipping. Tipping was meant to circumvent the man and give somebody money and be like, hey, I appreciate your service. That's what tipping is. So you mean to tell me because somebody gave me a gift, a small gift at that. And sure, they add up over time, but it's a bunch of people giving small gifts. If you want to tax on gifts over $1,000, sure, that makes sense. All these YouTubers go out do these $1,000 tips, cool, tax that. But it's like, bro, somebody gave me $5, and you
I
want to take 20% of
I
that is
don't know if it's
crazy.
I don't know if it's a gift. I would likely
It
say
is.
that because they earn $2 or $3 an hour, that the onus to pay wages of these people is on the public, or like then that onus needs to shift to the restaurant where they pay them above minimum wage and they just increase menu prices. But ultimately that's not a gift. Like like you're giving them their salary based off their performance or some shit.
But you do understand you have the ability to not tip, right? You do understand everybody could go tomorrow and decide to write a zero with a slash through it. And that person could have just gotten $2 an hour, dude.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But because of the culture around tipping and how necessary it is, and people understand that, like realistically, that shit don't.
But not everybody understands that. I've been out with friends, bro. I don't know if you were there necessarily, but you remember when we were at Bombshells? Were you there? We got that terrible service.
Yeah, I think so.
Everybody wrote on the yeah, bro. Yeah. I think I tipped the most that day. And it was terrible service, bro. And I still tipped like $2. But you have
Yeah,
niggas
even
tipping like 2 pennies, bro.
yeah, even
Like,
even when you get terrible service, that just goes to show that like that's the necessity behind tipping. I'm all
but
for tipping.
everybody else either didn't tip or they left like 2 cents and then wrote a note that was their actual two
And then
cents.
like,
Like,
well,
come
that's
on,
fucked on their part. And if I was part of that, then it's fucked on my part. Sad to say, I was a poor college kid. So, real quick, to go to your point of, to go back to the infrastructure bill, the White House released a fact sheet that says that 13,000 bridge repair projects were funded, as well as 250,000 miles worth of road. Um,
where?
I couldn't tell you where. Probably throughout the United States.
Hence why we need transparency. There's no specifics. It's just ambiguity. Ambiguity does not work for me. I don't see tangibles. No tangibles. That's a
But
problem.
I mean, obviously, people have measured this. Like, I'm sure the facts are out there somewhere, but I mean, what do you want? You want the news to cover local Missouri bridge getting I don't know where you want this information to be found at. I mean, I'm let me see if I can find something. Uh,
Here, I actually have how much each state got from
oh, even fucking better. Yeah, all this stuff is already tracked. Just I
no,
think
but hold on. Let's look. Let's look. You know who got the freaking most?
probably the most populous states,
Well,
Texas,
not
New
all of
York, or
them.
Cali.
Well, not all of them. So, California got the most. Alabama was up there. I don't even know why Alabama was up there. Um, so let's start with Cali. Cali got 1.8 billion, almost 1.9 billion. And as far as I'm aware, all their major bridges were fine. There was never any news about anything being repaired or done on their bridges.
Why would Fox or whoever the fuck report on a local Cali construction?
Not Fox, MSNBC,
I don't get.
CNN.
He
I
said,
mean
why would some
anybody.
national
They're
news
local
page?
news. Where's proof that work was done, bro? In Alabama, hold on, bro. In Alabama, 1.4 billion dollars in
Yeah.
Alabama. Let's see if anything, bro. 1.1 billion dollars for Florida. Florida still doesn't have feeder roads, bro. What infrastructure was what was worked on? Who worked on it?
Okay,
Like,
here.
hold on, let's go to Texas.
No, no, don't
Three
bounce
point
around
three
because
billion dollars for Texas.
I just found
Mother effort, they have not, bro.
I just found a the infrastructure fucking bill, and it was released by the Department of Transportation for Alabama outlining the fucking projects.
When are these projects supposed to be completed by? Have they
I
started?
don't know, but like all
That's a
this stuff that you're
problem.
mentioning, like the transparency, I swear to God, it's there. The fact that they know how many, like the miles of road that were worked on, these are projects that are being accounted for. Like, I'm sure that,
Allegedly,
oh,
because there's
okay, I
where's
hear
the
you. Yeah, and
proof?
I don't want to dive into conspiracy theories, but
Oh my
like
gosh.
anytime you
Can you tangibly show me that these
go
people,
drive to fucking Alabama, you want to go see the bridge that
brother,
got worked on.
$3.3 billion to Texas, not a single road in any major city here has changed.
I don't know about that, right? During the winter freeze, hot like roads were severely damaged. I don't see much evidence of that anymore. I know
Well,
for a
that's
fact
a
in
bit
Killeen.
different because that's something that would need to be repaired regardless of this infrastructure bill existing or
I
not,
don't
my
I don't know.
dude.
Not necessarily like the roads were drivable. They were ass, but they were drivable. I mean,
Bro,
I'm just
bro,
saying
come on.
it may like the minutia of these projects. I mean, infrastructure is boring. Could be things that got fixed and people didn't even notice. She's like, oh shit, like all of a sudden my car doesn't like while I'm driving it. I think I don't know.
Who cares about that? You don't spend $2 trillion on that. You don't spend $2 trillion so people's cars can drive on smooth roads instead of
You
bumpy
don't think
roads.
the
Are you
fuel
freaking
efficiency of
serious?
like mass transport is important?
Mother effer.
Or if let's say
Let's
roads
hear
are
me out.
completely destroyed by ice or dams breaking or whatever, like I think there was an instance where in one of the states like a bridge collapsed or some shit, not due to the ice storm or whatever, but I think it just collapsed and it like was it Baltimore? I think so. I think there's a couple instances of that this year, but it grossly impacted transportation things, and they had to spend a fuck ton of money to get that shit up and running as quick as possible. For somebody that just advocated on cheaper energy to improve transportation, like roads are just important, just as important. Having drivable
They
roads
are, fam,
where we're
but
not
it's
wasting
like,
gas and traffic. Like that's arguably more important.
Wasting gas, the gas price is through the roof. I'm lucky I have a company car and a gas card to where I don't have to pay for gas
There you
because
go. There you go.
see, I'm blessed, but my rental, bro, I filled up a quarter of a tank in my second car that I rent out. It cost me $20 to fill up a quarter of a tank in a 2018 Nissan Altima. You've got to be freaking kidding me, bro.
Yeah,
That's insane.
got a fat
That's
ass tank. What do
crazy.
you got?
Whenever Trump was president, bro, I remember filling my tank full for like $25, bro. Do you remember that? Do you remember that?
No, I don't.
Oh, well,
It's
you drive
hard.
a Jeep. It's a little different,
Yeah,
but I
hard,
mean,
hard for me to say.
when I was driving my Ford Focus, bro, it cost me $20 for a full tank.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
17-gallon Nissan was like
No,
freaking $30 for a full tank, bro. Like, what are we talking about?
for sure, for
And
sure.
then, man, look, all I know is with this infrastructure bill, the key thing that I'm going to get to, right, that I'm going to ask you, do you think with the national debt being as big as it is, that that bill was necessary
Absolutely,
at that time?
absolutely. I don't know. The thing is though, national debt can be large. We can continue to spend money. The main thing is that like if I spend if I spend $30 trillion during my administration, but I tax the everlasting fuck out of the people and I have $35 trillion to spend and I run a net positive budget, like it doesn't matter how much you spend. Um, so it's just more so the proportion of the deficit to the income that you bring in. So like I think Biden has spent more money during his presidency than Trump, but runs a smaller deficit because he's bringing in more money. So to say that like, oh, did we really need to spend 2 trillion? I mean, if we had the money for it, sure, but I don't know, hard to say.
But here's the thing that you have to play with, which really factors into what you said, right? You're saying Biden's running a tighter deficit, which is, if anything, not by much, and he's projected to have a bigger deficit, if I'm not mistaken. But quite literally, one thing I would note is that in him running a higher deficit, right? People are hurting, or smaller deficit, as you said. People are hurting more in all aspects of life, bro. You have people crying because they said they can't afford bell peppers because they went from freaking $2 to $5. Like the cost of living, bro. I went to the store to buy stuff to make tacos, but I already had most of the other stuff. Like every store trip, if I need anything of any significance, is like $100. I got ground beef, 2 pounds, 2 bags of cheese, mild cheddar, nothing crazy, 2 things of cilantro, 3 limes, and I'm trying to think, is that everything? I'm pretty sure that's like everything I got. Oh, and some pre-chopped yellow onion cost me $36.
Yeah.